magnificent, magnificent setting. Do you think about all the lives that were lost here? Please all have a seat. On July 4th, 1863, America woke to the remains of perhaps the most consequential battle in American soil. It took place here on this ground in Gettysburg. 3 days of violence, 3 days of carnage, 50,000 casualties.
Hey everyone, welcome
wounded,
to the broadcast.
captured,
I am just
missing,
getting things set
or
up
dead.
right now. I'm going to take you to the
Over
other
3
screen.
days
You
of
guys
fighting.
can watch Joe. Enjoy yourselves.
When the sun rose
and
on
we will
that
be back in
Independence
time for the
Day,
debate.
Lee would retreat. The war would go on for nearly 2 more years, but the back of the Confederacy had been broken. The Union would be saved. Slavery would be abolished. Government by, and for the people would not perish from the earth. And freedom would be born anew in our land. There's no more fitting place than here today in Gettysburg to talk about the cost of division, about how much it has cost America in the past, about how much it is costing us now, and about why I believe in this moment we must come together as a nation. For President Lincoln, the Civil War was about the greatest of causes: the end of slavery, widening equality, pursuit of justice, the creation of opportunity, and the sanctity of freedom. His words would live ever after. We hear them in our heads, we know them in our hearts, we draw on them when we seek hope in hours of darkness. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Here, on this sacred ground, Abraham Lincoln reimagined America itself. Here, a President of the United States spoke of the price of division and the meaning of sacrifice. He believed in the rescue, redemption, and rededication of the Union. All this in a time not just of ferocious division, but of widespread death, structural inequity, and fear of the future. And he taught us this: a house divided could not stand. That is a great and timeless truth. Today, once again, we are a house divided. But that, my friends, can no longer be. We are facing too many crises. We have too much work to do. We have too bright a future to have it shipwrecked on the shoals of anger and hate and division. As we stand here today, a century and a half later after Gettysburg, we should consider again what can happen when equal justice is denied, when anger and violence and division are left unchecked. As I look across America today, I'm concerned. The country is in a dangerous place. Our trust in each other is ebbing. Hope seems elusive. Too many Americans see our public life not as an arena for mediation of our differences, but rather they see it as an occasion for total, unrelenting partisan warfare. Instead of treating each other's party as the opposition, we treat them as the enemy. This must end. We need to revive the spirit of bipartisanship in this country, a spirit of being able to work with one another. When I say that, and I've been saying it for 2 years now, I'm accused of being naive. I'm told maybe that's the way things used to work, Joe, but they can't work that way anymore. Well, I'm here to tell you they can, and they must, if we're going to get anything done. I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. I'll work with Democrats and Republicans. I'll work as hard for those who don't support me as those who do. That's the job of a president, the duty to care for everyone. The refusal of Democrats and Republicans to cooperate with one another is not due to some mysterious force beyond our control. It's a decision. It's a choice we make. And if we can decide not to cooperate, we can decide to cooperate as well. That's the choice I'll make as president. But there's something bigger going on in this nation than just our broken politics. Something darker, something more dangerous. I'm not talking about ordinary differences of opinion. Competing viewpoints give life and vibrancy to our democracy. No, I'm talking about something different, something deeper. Too many Americans seek not to overcome our divisions, but to deepen them. We must seek not to build walls, but bridges. We must seek not to have our fists clenched, but our arms open. We have to seek not to tear each other apart, but seek to come together. You don't have to agree with me on everything, or even on most things, to see that we're experiencing today is neither good nor normal. I made the decision to run for president after Charlottesville. Close your eyes and remember what you saw. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and the KKK coming out of the fields with torches lighted, veins bulging, chanting the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. It was hate on the march, in the open, in America. Hate never goes away. It only hides. And when it's given oxygen, when it's given an opportunity to spread, when it's treated as normal and acceptable behavior, we've opened a door in this country that we must move quickly to close. As president, that's just what I will do. I will send a clear, unequivocal message to the entire nation. There is no place for hate in America. It will be given no license. It will be given no oxygen. It will be given no safe harbor. In recent weeks and months, the country has been riled by instances of excessive police force, heart-wrenching cases of racial injustice and lives needlessly and senselessly lost, by peaceful protesters giving voice to the calls for justice, by examples of violence and looting and burning that cannot be tolerated. I believe in law and order. I never supported defunding the police, but I also believe injustice is real. It's a product of a history that goes back 400 years, the moment when black men, women, and children first were brought here in chains. I do not believe we have to choose between law and order and racial justice in America. We can't have both. This is a nation strong enough to both honestly face systemic racism and strong enough to provide safe streets for our families and small businesses that too often bear the brunt of this looting and burning. We have no need for armed militias roaming America's streets. And we should have no tolerance for extremist white supremacy groups menacing our communities. If you say we should trust America's law enforcement authorities to do the job, as I do, then let them do their job without extremist groups acting as vigilantes. If you say we have no need to face racial injustice in the country, you haven't opened your eyes to the truth in America. There have been powerful voices for justice in recent weeks and months. George Floyd's 6-year-old daughter, who I met with, who looked at me and said in her small child's voice, "Daddy changed the world." Also, Jacob Blake's mother was another when she said, "Violence didn't reflect her son, and this nation needed healing." And Doc Rivers, the basketball coach, choking back tears when he said, "We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We've been hung." It's amazing why we keep loving this country, and this country does not love us back. I think about that. I think about what it takes for a black person to love America. That is a deep love for this country that has for far too long never been recognized. What we need in America is leadership that seeks to de-escalate tensions, to open lines of communications, to bring us together, to heal, to hope. As president, that's precisely what I will do. We paid a high price for allowing the deep divisions in this country to impact on how we deal with the coronavirus. 210,000 Americans dead, and the number's climbing. It's estimated that nearly another 210,000 Americans could lose their lives by the end of the year. Enough. No more. Let's just set partisanship aside. Let's end the politics and follow the science. Wearing a mask is not a political statement. It's a scientific recommendation. Social distancing isn't a political statement. It's a scientific recommendation. Testing, tracing, the development and ultimate approval and distribution of a vaccine isn't a political statement. It is a science-based decision. We can't undo what has been done. We can't go back, but we can do so much better. We can do better starting today. We can have a national strategy that puts politics aside and saves lives. We can have a national strategy that will make it possible for our schools and businesses to open safely. We can have a national strategy that reflects the true values of this nation. This pandemic is not a red state or blue state issue. This virus doesn't care whether you live or where you live, what political party you belong to. It affects us all. It will take anyone's life. It's a virus. It's not a political weapon. There's another enduring division in America that we must end. The division in our economic life that gives opportunity only to the privileged few. America has to be about mobility. It has to be the kind of country where an Abraham Lincoln, a child of the distant frontier, can rise to the highest office in the land. America has to be about possibilities, the possibility of prosperity, not just for the privileged few, but for the many, for all of us. Working people and their kids deserve an opportunity. Lincoln knew this. He said that a country had to give people, and I quote, an open field and a fair chance. An open field and a fair chance. That's what we're going to do in the America we're going to build together. We fought a civil war that would secure a union, that would seek to fulfill the promise of equality for all. And by fits and starts, our better angels have prevailed again just enough just enough against our worst impulses to make a new and better nation. And those better angels can prevail again now. They must prevail again now. 100 years after Lincoln spoke at Gettysburg, the Vice President, Lyndon B. Johnson, also came here, and here's what he said. He said, "Our nation found its soul and honor in these fields of Gettysburg. We must not lose that soul in dishonor now on the fields of hate." Today, we're engaged once again in a battle for the soul of the nation. The forces of darkness, the forces of division, the forces of yesterday are pulling us apart, holding us down, and holding us back. We must free ourselves of all of them. As president, I will embrace hope, not fear, peace, not violence, generosity, not greed, and light, not darkness. I'll be a president who appeals to the best in us, not the worst. I'll be a president who pushes toward the future, not one who clings to the past. I'm ready to fight for you and for our nation every day, without exception, without reservation, and with a full and devoted heart. We cannot and will not allow extremists and white supremacists to overturn the America of Lincoln and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, to overturn the America that has welcomed immigrants from distant shores, to overturn the America that has been a haven and a home for everyone, no matter their background. From Seneca Falls to Selma to Stonewall, we're at our best when the promised America is available to all. We cannot and we will not allow violence in the street to threaten the people of this nation. We cannot and will not walk away from our obligation to, at long last, face the reckoning on race and racial justice in this country. We cannot and will not continue to be struck in the partisan politics that lets us, this virus, thrive while the public health of this nation suffers. We cannot and will not accept an economic equation that only favors those who've already got it made. Everybody deserves a shot at prosperity. Folks, thank you. Duty and history call presidents to provide for the common good, and I will. It won't be easy. It won't be easy. Our divisions today are long-standing. Economic and racial inequities have shaped us for generations. But I give you my word. I give you my word. If I'm elected president, I will marshal the ingenuity and goodwill of this nation to turn division into unity and bring us together, because I think that the people are looking for that. We can disagree about how we move forward, but we must take the first steps. And it starts with how we treat one another, how we talk to one another, how we respect one another. In the second inaugural, Lincoln said, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we're in, to build up the nation's wounds, bind up the nation's wounds." Now we have our work to reunite America, to bind up our nation's wounds, to move past shadow and suspicion. And so we, you and I, together, we press on even now. After hearing the second inaugural address, Frederick Douglass told President Lincoln, "Mr. Lincoln, that was a sacred effort. We have to be dedicated to our own sacred effort." The promise of Gettysburg that a new birth of freedom was at hand, I think it's at risk. Every generation that has followed Gettysburg has been faced with a moment when it must answer this question: whether it will allow the sacrifices made here to be in vain or be fulfilled. This is our moment to answer this essential American question for ourselves and for our time. And my answer is this. It cannot be that after all this country has been through, after all that America has accomplished, after all the years we have stood as a beacon of light to the world, it cannot be that here and now in 2020, we will allow the government of the people, by the people, and for the people to perish on this earth. No, it cannot, and it must not. We have it in our hands the ultimate power, the power to vote. It's the noblest instrument ever devised to register our will in a peaceable and productive fashion. And so we must vote. We will vote, no matter how many obstacles are thrown in our way, because once America votes, America will be heard. Lincoln said, "The nation is worth fighting for." So it was, and so it is. Together, as one nation, under God, indivisible, let us join forces to fight the common foe of injustice and inequality, hate and fear. Let's conduct ourselves as Americans who love each other, who love our country, who will not destroy, but will build. We owe it to the dead who were buried here at Gettysburg. We owe that to the living and to future generations yet to be born. You and I are part of a covenant, a common story of divisions overcome and hope renewed. If we do our part, if we stand together, if we keep faith with the past and with each other, then the divisions of our time will give way to the dreams of a brighter, better future. This is our work. This is our pledge. This is our mission. And we can end this era of division. We can end the hate and the fear. We can be what we are at our best, the United States of America. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you. We can do this.
Hello and welcome everyone to the LieStream. I am your host, your Heavenly Father, Kevin Williams, and we are getting ready for the VP debate. Whatever happens tonight, it will change nothing, because it's a vice presidential debate. We might get a one-liner out of it. That'll be nice. Welcome to the new home of the Outhouse Studios. We have switched locations since our last time out, from one room to another room. So here we are. Welcome to 2020. Good to see you, everybody. They are obviously just getting ready for the debate. We're watching the C-SPAN feed right now. I don't think there's any audio coming over it right now. As soon as things get going, we will get going. Keeping track of the lies, you can see the scoreboard up there in the corner. The lies today between Pence and Harris, I don't expect anyone to get anywhere near to 70 lies like Trump told last time. The final tally for Biden was 5 lies or misrepresentations. 2 of them because he forgot to use the word widespread in front of voter fraud. Another one because he left out a word as well. So we're just calling them lies. Some of them are misleads and some of them are untruths, but we're just calling them lies for the sake of it. If you'd like to watch the broadcast and get it on the chat, please do so. Hey, welcome to everybody watching on the Randy Rainbow Friends page on Facebook, and a big shout out to everybody there who is going to take part in the broadcast. I have been trying to get the chat to work from there. It doesn't want to go through. From my main Facebook page, it is going through. From Facebook, Heavenly Father, it's going through. But for whatever reason, it's not going through from the group, and I'm not sure why that is, so we will work on that. If you want to chat tonight, there's a couple of ways to do it. The best way to do it, the most real time, is to go to youtube.com/KevinLieFather if you want to get up on that chat window over there. Otherwise, within the Randy Rainbow page, you'll be able to chat, and you'll be able to see everybody else's chat, just like you regularly would with a live stream video. But if you want to get in on the chat that actually appears on the screen, youtube.com/KevinLieFather. Welcome to everybody. The presidential debate, we had almost 2,000 people watching at one point. So I know the vast majority of the people just watch. They don't get in there and chat, and that's great. Welcome to, I saw David with Snopes, Snopes.com, the fact-checking site. I saw him in here earlier. So we'll be checking him as facts going along. We'll be watching Daniel Dale from CNN. I will be checking another couple of fact-checking sites as things go. This will be nowhere near as intensive or as chaotic as the presidential debate was last time. That was a circus. And I guess Biden actually won big, because every poll that's coming out right now, mind you, national poll and state poll, every single poll that I've seen coming out since the debate, here we go, has been in Biden's favor. Let me turn on her volume.
University of Utah in Salt Lake City, welcome to the first and only vice presidential debate of 2020.
Welcome to the hoo-ha in Utah. Nobody knows what hoo-ha means except my grandfather. It means a big tussle.
Important part of our democracy. In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience, and we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic. Among other things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask, and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart. The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
They got plexiglass, but it's like plexiglass you'd see at a 7-Eleven. The virus is aerosolized. The plexiglass isn't doing much. Airborne, aerosolized, two different things. Aerosolize, like smoke in a room. It fills the room.
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here.
Ooh, she gets a teleprompter.
We're meeting
I could
as
moderate
President
this.
Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus. The two campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching. One note, no one in either campaign or at the Commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask. This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each. I'll begin a segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me or the other candidate. Then we'll take 6 minutes or so to discuss the issue. At that point, although there will always be more to say, we'll move on to the next topic. We want a debate that is lively, but Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are tumultuous times, but we can and will have a respectful exchange about the big issues facing our nation. Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our country so much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
This is going to be my quickest trip to the DMV
Well,
ever.
the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country.
That is
And here
true.
are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the Vice President and the President were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan.
David, should I give her one for the hoax?
They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has, and that
it's
I
already
have,
a free-for-all,
knowing that we
Kamala.
have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited
Thank you,
their
Senator
right to
Harris.
re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
That is true.
Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For
Also
instance,
true.
our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door.
Yep.
You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you. You know, our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world.
That is a lie.
Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision.
That is a
He
lie.
said it was xenophobic and hysterical.
That's a lie.
But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because
Also
with
a lie.
that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115 million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the delivery of billions of supplies so our doctors and nurses had the resources support they needed. And we began, really, before the month of February was out, to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe we'll have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year.
Can't fact
The
check
reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. And I think the American people know that this is a president who has put the
Thank you,
health
Vice
of America first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be
Thank you,
proud
Vice
of the
President
sacrifices they have
Subjective.
made. It's saved
Thank you,
countless
Vice President
American
Pence.
lives.
Senator Harris. Would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss. And you know, the vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
So no, but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to
have
add,
to
but
weigh in
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh
speaking.
in.
Yeah, you can
So
have 15 more
wanna-
seconds, and then we'll give the vice president
Thank
a
you.
chance to
So I
respond.
want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm
Thank
were
you.
you
Thank
when
you,
your
Senator
children
Harris.
couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them?
Let's give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to
You
respond.
know, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers.
Can't.
But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to you and
reality,
the
if I may finish, Senator, the reality is Dr. Fauci said everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump,
That's
I will
not
tell
true.
you, has boundless confidence in the American
That's not
people,
what he
and
said.
he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. And that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us, if
President
we did
Pence.
everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice
Now,
President
one
Pence.
life lost is too
Thank you.
many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting
Come
the
on.
health of their family,
Kamala, come
and their
back with, I'm
neighbors
not talking
first,
about
our
the American
doctors, our
people, I'm
nurses,
talking
our
about
first
you.
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice
Pence.
President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior administration and congressional officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and their ability to take that
Which is why we
information
hid and
and put it
downplayed.
into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy Coney
Yes,
Barrett.
thank you. Thank you, Vice
But
President
at
Pence.
that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested
Yes.
for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of
a
their
lie.
health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank you. Thank
the
you, Vice
Green New
President Pence.
Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader
done.
speaking of those things
That's a
that you
lie.
may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked
No,
about
Vice
the
It is
President,
asking too much of the people.
Let-
That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect
Susan,
their
the
parents
President-
and
No,
their
I'm sorry.
children.
Hey,
Kamala
you shut
Harris,
up.
Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's
I
fine,
meant
I'm
to say-
Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me. For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it, absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions from this pandemic.
Well,
In recent
that'll
days,
be
the president's
misconstrued.
diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had.
That's not.
Donald
how do
Trump
I-
will be
how do I give
74
her a
years old
lie?
on Inauguration Day.
Where's-
Joe
I'm gonna give
Biden
her a-
will
hold
be
on.
78 years old. That already has raised
There we go.
concerns among some voters,
Susan
concerns
gets
that
the
have been
white dots.
sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on
well,
to the
thank
issue
you,
of
but I would like to
vice
go back
presidency.
because
This always happens.
the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives.
Stay on the rails.
The reality is that we will have a vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year.
The
And it will have
reality
the
is, we
capacity to
believe we
save
will have it. They do
countless
believe that.
American lives, and your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is just it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, you know, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration,
That
we
woman.
actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009.
Yeah.
The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal
Okay.
as the
Well, let's move
coronavirus.
on then. How about
But
answering
before
the
the
question?
end of the year,
Yeah.
when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States,
Yeah.
not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu.
Uh-huh.
60 million Americans contracted the swine flu.
Right.
If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus in 2009,
which it
when
isn't.
Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives.
Right. And
His
different
own
steps
chief
would
of
have been
staff,
taken.
Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong.
No.
And
that's
we
not what he
learned
said.
from that.
No,
They left the strategic national stockpile empty.
they did
They
not.
left an empty and hollow plan, but we
Thank you,
still
Vice
learned
President.
from
Two
it.
more.
And I think
Vice
the
President,
American people,
thanks for
I'm saying
tackling that
again, can be
difficult
proud
Vice
question.
President Pence, I'm
of
sorry.
Have you
what
had a
we have
conversation
done.
with the president?
And Senator,
Thanks
please
for
Thank you,
covering
Vice
that,
stop
President.
Mr.
undermining
Pence.
confidence in a vaccine.
Back to you,
Senator
Mamala.
Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked
Sure.
Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures
Yes, he has
when
agreed
it
not
comes
to
to the
die.
issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you
I'm going to pause it just for a second here. But Pence going back to the coronavirus is not where they should be right now.
should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values.
Okay, you can skip the whole part about you being relatable and human. You're sitting next to plexiglass, next to a tackling dummy. You're already there. Get back to the issues.
That are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because, I have a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first woman of color and black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States.
Well, not the Attorney General.
Second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners to for-profit colleges that were taking advantage of veterans.
And have you talked to Joe?
And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in regular receipt of classified information about threats to our nation and hotspots around the world. I've traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in war zones. And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share a purpose which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
You're supposed to be better,
President Trump nor Vice
than the
President
other
Biden
guy.
has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my question to each of you in turn is this information voters deserve to know?
The question was, have you had the conversation with the president, either of these two people, about them being old and almost dead? It's a stupid question, but it opens up doors. There's wonderful ways to answer that question. Kamala should have said, I have had that conversation with the president, and he has told me that he has absolutely no intention of dying. Ha 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 ha. First laugh of the evening. Back to, now, let's get back to the facts on coronavirus and the swine flu. Da-da-da-da-da-da, boom. Da-da-da-da-da, boom.
President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been.
See, Kamala's there.
By the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus.
Okay, great.
But the care the President received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president.
And we are getting nothing.
To do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions, genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher, but I think the choice has never been clearer.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, The president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the President's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there. He is honest, he is forthright. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
The American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property
watch Kamala
taxes.
here. Hold on. Watch her. She's been waiting for this. Let's hope she pounces. Here she goes. Watch that face. Watch her as he says, job creator.
Was a businessman. He's a job creator.
Bare in the teeth.
Tens of millions
she honestly feels sorry for him right now. Here it comes, people.
of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of
many
American
taxes.
jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can
Not the taxes.
review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
And
President.
turned this economy around by cutting taxes, rolling back regulation, unleashing
Vice
American
President
energy,
Pence.
fighting for free and fair trade, and all of that's
thank you,
on the
Vice
line
President
if
Pence.
Joe Biden and
He put tariffs on everybody. Fighting for fair trade. I'm giving him a lie for that one. Here we go. Come on.
Harris.
You know, that's a good
White.
segue into our third
great
topic,
segue.
which is about the economy. This has been another aspect of life for Americans. It's been
That's a great segue. I'm giving Harris a point for that one. Here we go. Come on. Give her the layup.
so affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work. Nearly 11 million jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, blacks, and women. Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new
Elizabeth,
programs to
I
boost
could
the
just
economy,
mute
and you
him
would
every
pay for
time.
that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you. On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental
She's not going to answer the question about taxes. She's just going to attack what Pence just put out on the table. Please.
difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development so that we were an innovation leader on the globe. Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education.
He's looking at mother.
So, for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free. And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country as opposed to passing a tax bill, which had the benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
Thank you,
You're
Senator
welcome.
Harris. Vice President Pence, your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust recovery, but the latest economic report suggests that's not happening.
Good, but she didn't bite on what was laid out in front of her. And, okay, maybe she's biding her time. Maybe she's biding her time. Good night, folks. Tip your waitress.
Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. It's when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy.
And it worked.
President Trump cut taxes across
It
the
worked
board.
beautifully.
Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of 4 had $2,000 in savings in taxes. And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of 4 increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you,
But that
on day
includes
one,
the 1%.
Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after a time where
Hold
we're
on, what
going
did he
through a
say?
pandemic that lost Joe Biden's going to raise your America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan.
She said she was going to get rid of Trump's tax plan, which would raise taxes on some Americans, but not all Americans, certainly not on me. Because my taxes went up after the tax plan because I couldn't write off all of the stuff that I normally would write off. I'm going to call that a lie because he's saying all Americans.
I mean, right after a time where we're
She's
going through a
enjoying it.
pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury
That's a
our
lie.
economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate.
That is incorrect.
They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of
Not true.
thousands of American jobs all across the heartland.
Not true.
And Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China, that when we took office,
Also
half
not
of our
true.
international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American
true.
workers.
That
Joe
caused
Biden says
manufacturing
democracy's
contraction.
on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth
Thank you,
and
sir.
opportunity,
Thank you,
4
Vice
more years of President Donald Trump. 2021
Thank
is
you,
going
Vice
to be the
President
biggest
Pence.
economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000
He said he's
a
going to
year.
repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait,
I'm speaking.
it'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the
Kamala,
Trump tax
come
cuts.
back.
That was tax cuts that gave the average working family
Talk over him.
$2,000
Do not let
in a
him
tax
interrupt
break
you.
every single year.
That is,
Senator,
that is
that's the math.
absolutely not true. That
Is he
tax
only
bill,
cutting? Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then
Please.
have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden
Wow,
will
she
not
gave
raise
up points
taxes
there.
on anyone who makes less than $400,000
I'm giving Pence
a
2
year.
points
He's
for
been
that.
very clear about that. Joe Biden will not
She just sat there with her mouth open, letting him talk. No.
end fracking. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the
I don't know. How do you guys read that? This is I'm not a woman. I don't have a woman's sensibilities. Sometimes people really don't like it when a man interrupts a woman. I'm coming at this as apolitically as I can here. Kamala should have shut his ass down. But she didn't. She said, I'm talking, and then she just sat there with her mouth agape listening to him. Poor form. Bad debate.
Recovery Act that brought America back, and now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit when they rode the coattails of Joe Biden's success for the economy that they had at the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster. But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act, which brought health care to over 20 million Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also did is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt.
But this is her time right now. This is supposed to be uninterrupted time. If he's going to continue to talk, she could have. No, I'm talking. Susan, is this my interrupted time? Thank you. Be quiet. And stayed on point. He totally threw her off the rails.
Because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but
important.
we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish.
Good.
Please. If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're
Or
coming
COVID.
for you.
Or COVID.
If you love someone who has a pre-existing condition,
Thank you. Thank
they're
you, Senator
coming for
Harris.
you. If you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're
Let me
welcome.
give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster. The American people remember it well.
Saved my life.
President Trump and I have a plan to improve health care and to protect
They do
pre-existing
not have a plan.
conditions for every American. But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking. Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee that we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation, banning fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change. And Vice President Pence, I'd like to pose the first question to you. This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West. Do you believe, as the scientific community has concluded, that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly, and have made hurricanes wetter, slower, and more damaging? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. Well, first, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded. Our water is among the cleanest in the world.
That is not true.
And just a little while ago, the president signed the Outdoors Act,
part of
the
that is true.
largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing. But the issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose
Just 2 weeks ago, although it seems like 2005, Trump said, I don't think the science knows about the science.
the Green New Deal,
Should I give more than one lie for that?
which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families in their homes, and literally would crush American jobs. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's remarkable is
That
the
is
United
not how
States has
science works.
reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation. And we've done it through natural gas and fracking, which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
there are no more hurricanes today than there were 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists
President Pence,
use
I'm sorry, your time
hurricanes
is up.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods of a
Pence.
Green New Deal. And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden
And Trump is the first
are going to
president
be
who will
about
leave office
clean
with
energy
fewer
and
jobs.
renewable energy.
Go to the record.
Because you see,
Go
Joe
to the now.
understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa, whose entire crops have been destroyed because of floods. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, you know, the science is telling us this, you know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years.
Here's a GIF right here.
On what science doesn't know. So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions by 2050. carbon neutral by 2035. Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day one he was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. Those tax cuts delivered $2,000 in tax relief to the average family of four across America. And with regard to banning fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you...
Well, there are probably about the same number of hurricanes, but the hurricanes are much, much worse. So it's not a lie so much as not telling a relevant truth. I can't give him a lie for that. I mean, it should be, but he's up 23-0 at this point.
You would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden denied the Green New Deal, Susan, thank you for pointing out, the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look,
just for the record, that was an opinion piece, and it is not. There's a framework. They call it on the website. They call it a framework for their plan, which is far, far less aggressive than the Green New Deal. It's not even close. In fact, those who are behind the Green New Deal are kind of upset that it wasn't adopted in full, like they wanted it to be. But it's nonsense.
The American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a...
I'm going to give him a line. Here's why. We haven't reduced CO2 emissions. We've lowered our CO2 emissions, but we haven't reduced them. The CO2 emissions have built up over time. You have to go lower, you have to go under and start reducing. So we haven't actually reduced. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, let's move on. We're watching the debate, not me.
Massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us to retrofit 4 million American business buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump is going to put America first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care.
Here's the thing. She should just turn him. Wait a minute. Who do you think is going to retrofit those 3 million or whatever number of buildings you think it is? Who's going to do that? That's jobs. People have to do it. It's jobs.
Of our environment and follow the science.
Thank you.
But, on the issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it. What ended up happening is because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs.
That is true.
Farmers have experienced bankruptcy because of it. We are in a manufacturing recession because of it.
That's true.
And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration. And the American people know what I'm talking about. You know. I think about 20-year-olds. You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old, who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent by the end of the month. This is where the economy is in America right now, and it is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you just 15 seconds to respond, because then I want to move on to
Well, I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades. And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs, and President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration saw 500,000 manufacturing jobs created. And that's exactly the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation through this pandemic. But a Green New Deal, your massive new mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I just need to respond very briefly.
15 seconds, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China. We have, as our next topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Hey, come on. Does anybody believe he's going to answer this question? And is China going to pay Mexico, and then Mexico's going to pay for... I don't...
Susan. Well, before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land. American people deserve to know Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. I think the American people deserve to know that. It's probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019, more liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others in the United States.
It's not Newsweek that says that, but there's a separate system that tracks that. But yes, that is true. She's the most liberal senator in 2019. She was. She still is. And the reason is you get points for your policies. You also get more points the more legislation you co-sponsor or sponsor. And she's busy. She sponsors a lot of stuff. And so that vaults her above the senators that you would think would be more liberal, like Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Senate. So now,
it's just how the rating system works. She's not really more liberal than they are, but you have to put numbers to it. So that's the numbers that the system does.
With regard to China, look, Susan, first and foremost, China is to blame for the coronavirus.
Debbie, don't be racist.
And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people.
That's a lie.
They did not let our personnel into China
to
get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China. And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was xenophobic.
Hold on.
President Trump has stood up to China. We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold China accountable for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship?
That was Trump praising China for their transparency with the coronavirus. So I'll take a strong stand against China, broad shoulders leadership, banned all flights. That's just lies, complete nonsense.
Relationship with China. Are we competitors, adversaries, enemies. You'll have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Susan,
Will she,
the
though?
Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war that they called it.
She got the number
Then
wrong,
let's
so
talk
I'm going to
about
give her a lie.
standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years. And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
David Mickelson's got an update here. ABC News has obtained an internal FEMA memo that reveals that 34 people connected to the White House, more than previously known, are infected by coronavirus. The last count I saw from NBC News was 27. So, yeah, and there's probably more than that as well. It's a hotspot. Right now, the White House is the worst hotspot on the planet. And who's in charge of that response? Would you like to mention that?
So, Joe is, I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. Got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know.
She's going church lady on us now. You got to be loyal to your friends. I wonder who's president next. Who could it be? Maybe Satan?
Who you're loyal to your friends, relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. Got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So, Russia, I serve on the Intelligence
She's talking more to the camera and less to Susan.
Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the same. But Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO. He's walked away from agreements.
Not our friends.
Look at the Iran nuclear deal.
Look at me.
Which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism, he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships.
She's talking to
And
Susan.
the thing that has always been part of the strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel.
Woohoo!
When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did. We've stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding.
Did Vice President did Pence ever promise to move? Obama did, but did Pence ever promise to move the capital of Israel to Jerusalem? Why would he? Why? And every president did. And then you get down to it, and it's like, well, people are going to die, sir. Okay, well, let's just not do that. Let's not change the address. This still goes to the same people, right? Everybody, nothing changes, really? Okay.
NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia-Pacific, and we've stood strong.
I was going to give him a lie on that one, but Kim Jong-un, so...
Against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office...
That is not true.
ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their leader, al-Baghdadi, without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands. But notably, America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, her parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, two of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other beetle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller. It breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look,
President.
we destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President.
Thank you,
Pence.
Mr. Vice President.
And when
Thank you.
Qasem Soleimani was traveling
Mr. Vice
to
President, you're
Baghdad
done.
Thank you,
to do
Vice
harm
President
to Americans,
Don't say
President
thank you,
Donald
say
Trump
shut
took
Thank you,
us
Vice
out.
President Pence.
That's
America
fine, thank you.
is,
Say
is
shut it.
safer, our allies are safer.
Mr. Vice
and the American
President,
people
time.
know President Donald Trump will never
Mr. Vice
Thank you, Vice
President,
President.
you're
Take
that's
action.
6
I would like to
thank
give
yous, Susan.
Senator Harris a
He's
chance
not
to
getting
respond,
it.
but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk about.
But I would like equal time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened to her is awful, and it should have never happened. And I know Joe feels the same way. And I know that President Obama feels the same way. But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there. So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq. And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as?
Headaches.
Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers. Donald Trump, who went to Arlington Cemetery and stood above the graves of our fallen heroes and said, what's in it for them? Because, of course, he only thinks about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain, a great American hero. And Donald Trump says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And this is very important when you want to talk about who is the current commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And you know what a bounty is? It's somebody puts a price on your head and they will pay it if you are killed.
I'm
and
done.
Donald Trump had talked at least 6 times to Vladimir Putin and never brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never do that.
Why would I
Joe
even listen to
Biden would,
this?
but Joe Biden
Come on, Kamala.
would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops
Good night,
who
folks.
are sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator Harris. This is such an important issue, but we have other important issues as well, and
Susan,
I want to make
respond
sure
to
we
that.
have a chance.
I really have to
talk about.
respond to that.
I'm-
Look, she has...
15 seconds because
Well, I gotta
we're
have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, but Vice
Terrible
President, you've had
decision-making.
more time than
Look,
she's
the-
had
the
so far.
slanders against President Donald Trump regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres
I already
all
gave
of
him
those who
these
serve in
points.
our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
But
Let
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
the
Vice
The
President
American
Pence,
people deserve,
Vice
Susan, the
President
American
Pence,
people
I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President
that-
Pence, I did not,
But you
excuse
can't
me,
deny.
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden
Your
and Trump-
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's
I-
debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you,
Go right
which
ahead.
is what
I'm
I'm
taking one of
trying
his
very
points
hard
away.
to
Go
do.
right ahead.
So I want to go ahead and move to the next topic, which is an important one, as the last topic was, and that is the Supreme Court. On Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden
I've already forgotten the question.
and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem.
That's a perfect point, Adirondam. Is there a voter in the United States that doesn't know how Pence feels about abortion and or cares how Pence feels about abortion?
Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Now, she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing.
What did he lie about, Stephanie, in that?
And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick
Yeah, that's not an attack.
Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is
up.
that when the hearing takes place,
Yeah, you know what Kamala should do right now? She says, you know what? I'm going to give up 30 seconds of my time and let him answer the question about abortion, please. Roe v. Wade. Go.
that,
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris,
What is that, 8 more thank yous?
you're the senator from and former Attorney General
Why is Susan there? Why? I like Susan. She's very good in her element. This is not it.
of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion? And you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. First
I don't know how you touch this one because it's not her job to decide how California reacts.
of all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact, Joe, if elected, will be only the second practicing Catholic as president of the United States.
JFK.
On the
Mention
issue
JFK.
of this nomination.
Mention J-fucking-K. It's right in front of you. Everybody loves JFK. Can we take that back? And to the left. Come on. Come on. I'm giving a point to Pence for that just because that was the easiest layup in the history of the game.
Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections, if they win, for people with pre-existing conditions. This means that over 20 million people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Thank you, Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator.
That's true
Harris.
leadership.
You know, you mentioned earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed
4 thank yous for Kamala.
to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says, President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was one of the toughest nuts to crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say,
Hold on. Ryan says, yeah, because nobody knows who the first Catholic president was. The people who really care so much about JFK would know that he was the first. He doesn't have to say JFK. disagree with that. A lot of people don't know that he was the first Catholic president, but they do know who he is, and they do think of him as an American hero, and he's always mentioned in the list of best presidents. So you make that association. It's a layup. It's right there. It's an empty net, and the puck's in the crease.
Addressing your very first question.
Also, other sports references. I don't know what sport you follow, but anyway, I'm just saying it's just do it. Just throw it in there. Take every point you can in this debate. You get 90 minutes to make your case. That's the problem. The problem is the system that we have where you get 90 minutes against your opponent to make the case of who's going to be in charge of the greatest nuclear arsenal on the planet. An hour and a half. I've waited longer for urine tests than that.
I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast.
Anyway, but I totally appreciate your point of view, Ryan. You may be absolutely right.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth.
We have to remember that 50% of the people in this country, well, let's say 40%, because everyone's going to vote this time. And when I say everyone, 60%. We might get to 65. Most people don't vote. But half of those people voting really don't know a lot about the politics. On any given night, you're going to get, for example, the race will probably be one with about 65 to 70 million votes, somewhere in that territory. The number of people watching the first debate was about 70 million. So that's just half of the voters watched that first debate. This debate, there's a lot of interest. We might get 45 million out of it. It's so hard to tell because there's internet and the network, so there's two different metrics now. That being said, so few people actually know the stuff that we know. Just the fact that we're watching this together on a live stream is, we're political junkies compared to the bulk of the population.
Late-term abortion. They want to increase
Vince had a fly
funding
in
to
his
Planned
head
Parenthood.
right now, David?
And Kamala Harris, those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood.
That's how important things are right now for the VP debate. No one's going to remember this. There's been no remarkable line so far.
Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never
It's what he didn't say.
presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett
Wait, I wasn't
would
even listening.
rule
Did he
on the
lie? I'm just
Supreme
giving him a
Court
point.
of the United States.
A lie.
But, we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe
That is not, because that is not in the rules, not in the Constitution.
Biden has refused to answer the question.
If they want to add judges to the Supreme Court, they certainly can.
So I think the American people would really like to know if Judge
It's happened before.
Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed at the Supreme Court of the United States. Are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more.
Yes.
In 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the
No,
question.
Mr.
Yes,
Vice President, I'm
please,
speaking.
very
I'm
fast.
speaking. Okay. In 1864.
That came across as icky. Watch, guys. Anybody else? I found it icky, and it was.
One of
Watch.
in 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
Mr.
Yes,
Vice President, I'm
please,
speaking.
very
I'm
fast.
speaking. Okay. In 1864.
That little K. Like, really, Karen? Am I reading that wrong? I didn't like it, guys.
One of the, I think, political heroes, certainly of the president. I assume
Chris liked it, so there you go.
if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election.
I'm just intimidated by smart women, so I don't like anything that they do.
And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now, and it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you,
And
Senator
the American
Harris.
people, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Let's talk about packing.
You once
Come
again
on.
gave a non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
Trying to answer you
The
now.
American people deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election. Men and
Mr.
women,
Vice President,
I got to
I
tell you,
think
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation
Whose time is this, Susan?
of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll
Agreed,
stand
John.
by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah,
Thank
let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the
Please.
fact. Yeah, I'm about to. So the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Senator.
That was absolutely brutal. I'm giving another point to Pence on that one. Just just ridiculous. Answer the question.
Let's go on and talk about the issue of racial justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question.
Oh,
But
she did.
Maybe
Thank you.
the
But it was
next
terrible.
debate, Joe Biden will answer the question.
Thank you.
But I think
Thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President. In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into her apartment. The police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer. And people around our country of every race, of every age, of every gender.
David, you're absolutely right. That's where I really hoped she was going, which would have been deflection. And I still might have given Pence a point for it, but come on. Yeah, that is exactly right. You pack the court, you don't let a judge go through, but then now you're arguing against yourself because you're saying, no, let the American people decide it. You have to make clear that the goalpost was already moved. Oh, they're changing the goalpost. You guys moved the goalpost in 2016. The American people remember that. You look at the American people. American people went, Merrick Garland, now RGB is dead. Suddenly, boom, we're going to move the goalpost right back. You're packing the court. That's 2 justices that belonged to the American people that you stole from them. That's packing the court. Not this whole, oh, out of X number of X's, no black ones. Yes, that's a problem. That's an issue. That's not packing the court.
Perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests. And I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana, and we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic issue of unarmed black people in America who have been killed.
Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you. In the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life.
Chris, you can't say midget.
And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But
yeah, so in order to win, Trump has to peel off a little bit of the black support from the Democratic Party. That's what happened with Hillary. That's why they won mathematically. This is not the answer he wants to give right now.
You're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. And justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. Was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this presumption.
Squiggy, are you watching this debate twice?
From Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That,
I guess Squiggy says
that America is systemically racist. And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes.
Squiggy watched the debate and is now back to watch more of this same debate. Woo! If a fly does show up on the forehead, that's all anyone is going to remember about this debate.
That law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day.
Flies
President
is
Trump
trending
and I
in the United
stand
States.
with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried.
Flies is now trending #1 in the United States. I think we're going to see it.
To pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats.
I missed
Senator
it.
Harris
I was looking
passed
up flies. There it is.
Men and women is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day that President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. Look, we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American neighbors and all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership, we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done from day one, and that is improve the lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice President
Record unemployment, record investments in education, and we'll fight for school choice for all of our minorities.
Thank you, Vice President.
I'd like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days.
That fly is sticking to Mike Pence like a fly on.
Where last week, the President of the United States took a debate.
Oh, it won't let go. Can't Susan say, Mr. Vice President? You got, wow.
Stage in front of 70 million Americans.
Poop. The fly is sticking to the Vice President like a fly on poop.
And refused to condemn white supremacists.
Not true.
And
Not true.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back.
Yeah, I'm not even
Stand
listening to
by.
her. This is all anyone's going to talk about.
And
I'm giving a
this
point
is
to
a
Harris.
part of a pattern
I'm giving
of Donald Trump's.
4 points to the fly.
He called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. He, on the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully
bye-bye.
protesting the need for racial justice, where
It's
a
gone.
young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches,
Apparently he was just doing a
shouting
flyby.
racial epithets,
Didn't bug me.
anti-Semitic slurs. And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the President of the United States. And America, you deserve better.
Fly wings
Joe
the debate.
Biden will be a president
I get it.
who brings our country together
Senator Harris.
and recognizes the beauty in our diversity and the fact that we
Senator
all
Harris,
have
thank
so
you.
much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side
wanna
of
see
the
more of
debate
the
over
fly?
monuments.
Hold on. Let's go back to the fly. There's the fly again. Let's watch the fly again.
And the reality of this is that we are talking
has no
about an
idea.
election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans.
Yeah, okay.
The need for racial justice. This is who we have. Beauty in
Media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
But I really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California,
Thank you,
you
Vice President.
increased the disproportionate incarceration of
Thank
blacks
you.
in California. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to
you.
pass the First Step Act on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record
Thank
speaks
you,
for
Vice
itself.
President
President
Pence.
Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President
We fought for
Pence.
educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our
Thank you,
minorities.
sir.
And we'll do it for 4 more
Thank
years.
you. You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election
But
itself.
Susan, he attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of
I
time.
appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only.
Thank you, Senator
I
Harris.
would like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
But I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because, yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting...
Wow, Susan's just letting her go. No, but I'd like to say something, Susan. Okay, go, I'll just, sorry. In the fly's defense, the entire stage looks like a salad bar with a sneeze guard. Probably was like there for like 10 minutes going like, is this the ambrosia? I don't get it. I've landed in the mail. Help!
Reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next? And President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next? You have 2 minutes.
Todd thinks it's a sneeze. I'm going to go with that too. Yeah. Thank God the sneeze guards are there.
So I'll tell you,
if it was a sneeze, you would just hear like a mad scramble in the audience. Everybody takes off. Kamala gets up like, I gotta go. You can have my time. Give her 20 points.
Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential campaign. Really proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign.
No fair. The Democrats had flies, they had dogs, apparently a trained seal.
And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in...
Yeah, with all the dog whistles Pence has been giving out, is it that the dogs finally show up?
...in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to Joe...
The total on lies was like 30-1 when I stopped keeping track of it.
Biden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power.
I don't know how to score the fly. I really don't. I think Pence has had a better debate than Harris to this point. We're not done with it yet. I've got him leading by a single point. But the fly, I mean, really, the fly has won the debate. It's over. We can all walk away now. Unless suddenly Kamala bursts into flames and burns up on stage. And I don't even know how I would score that. Does the score even matter?
After the election. If Vice President Biden is declared
And here's the question. Does the fly hurt Pence because he's completely oblivious to it?
the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would...
Does the whitest man in America, completely oblivious to a black thing, does that count against him? Just as he's talking about Breonna Taylor. What if that was the ghost of Breonna Taylor?
be your role and responsibility as vice president? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election.
What movie was that? Anyway.
Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years.
Establishment.
President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And
was the Exorcist, was that Souls though? I remember the Amityville Horror had a bunch of flies on the windows of it, but there was The Fly, the movie The Fly, where it's help me, and I'm sure that's all over Twitter now, but wasn't there like people came back like as their souls became flies or something like that? Holy shit, it was Herman Cain. In the movie, I think you got punished. If your soul went to hell, you became a fly. And so you had to spend the rest of eternity eating shit. I think that was implied. That was Herman Cain.
I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President.
Trending on Twitter, number 3 is now The Fly. Number 1 is now, thank you, Vice President. Thank you, Vice President. Thank you, Vice President.
Trump in my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral.
Thanks for joining us, John.
To the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for
okay, now he's just playing to an audience of dumb.
For the better part of 3 years.
I'm going to
until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances.
No, they did impeach the President of the United States over a phone call where he tried to get a foreign advocate. You know what? Nobody even remembers it.
Circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election.
Let's say 33 for Pence, 1 for
and I believe in all
Kamala.
my heart that President Donald Trump is going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are two candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added, "Your examples could make all the difference to bring us together," end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I start.
We have a winner, folks. We have a winner. Thanks to Olix. Thank you, Olix, for bringing my attention to this. Folks, we have a winner of tonight's debate. Hold on. It's coming. Let me bring that full for you guys. Joe Biden pitching $5 to help this campaign fly with a fly swatter. Oh, that is perfect. The winner of tonight's debate is Joe, Vice President, soon to be President Biden. Well played, sir. Well damn played. Let's finish this off.
Started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. But I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people.
Hey, Sean.
You know, I look at the relationship between
You missed
Justice
the
Ruth
fly.
Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal.
That's awesome. Flywheelvote.com. Thanks, Marcy, for sharing that.
One very conservative. But what's been learned since
We're never going to get to the end of this. Come on. We're almost there. Like a minute left.
her passing was the two of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that
It's all about the fly, Dr.
we're going
Howard.
to work every day to have government as good as
No
our
one
people.
cares what anyone else
The
has
American
said.
people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument, but we always come together and are always there for one another
Thank you,
in
Vice
times of
President.
need. And we've especially learned that
Thank you,
through
Mr.
the
Vice President.
difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First Lady.
That's 2020, isn't it? That's, what are we going to remember? Yeah, I knew Jack Kennedy and you are not Jack Kennedy. No. What do we have this year? A fly landed on somebody's hair. That is 2020. I was a fool to expect anything different. Okay, well, that's it for the broadcast. Hey, thanks for everyone for watching. This has been the live stream. This is what we do. If you want to have continual updates, we do this all the time, not just for the debates. We do this sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day. As the election gets closer, we'll be doing even more. So we appreciate your time doing this. I am your Heavenly Father, Kevin Williams. If you want updates on this, I will be trying to broadcast on the Friends of Randy Rainbow as well. Thanks very much to Elizabeth over there for booting the broadcast up to that page. Thanks to those who were watching on that page. Thanks to everybody who's watching who's not in chat. Thanks to the Kevinly family over there for chatting and keeping it interesting, because this was a really boring debate until the fly got here. And mostly, thank you. Thank you to Mother Nature for giving us that shit-eating fly to wipe that shit-eating grin. I'm like not even a fly. That's what we're left with. All right, everybody, I got to fly. See, I can't. I just can't. I don't. Everybody, have a great night. I'm going to get myself something to eat. Maybe visit a salad bar. Yeah, no, just your thoughts, guys. Your thought. Anybody? Oh, yeah. So we see the spouses touch the peoples.
And everyone who is
See if
battling
Mother
COVID-19.
gets up on Pence like a fly.
The second presidential debate is next week on October 15th,
Yeah.
a town hall style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us then. Good evening.
Show us. Yeah, we're going to do the haircut. Let's see what happens here, kids. Okay. Here comes Doug. Doug and Mother with a peck. And again, if you're going to marry somebody, marry a Democrat. They know how to hug. Mother not wearing a mask. Not wearing... Did we not just have a hotspot outbreak in the White House? And there's the second lady not wearing a mask. Yep. Did she have one? Did she take it off before the audience? I think she's got one in her hands. Okay, I take that back. It's possible she got up on stage and now she's just next to her hubby. She may have walked up on stage with it, in which case in case I completely retract what I said. Let's see if she... Yeah, I think she must have taken it off before she got on stage. So I apologize if she was wearing it in the audience. She has it in her hand. It looks like she just took it off, so that's fine. She's going in to give her husband a peck on the cheek. Granted, it's probably more contact than they've had in months, but great. Good for her. Yeah, so she must have had it on. I'm going overboard here. I mean, at the last debate, we had the entire first family, everybody involved on the Trump side, not wearing masks and potentially spreading the disease because Trump was not taking. I said this like a month ago. Trump is not taking tests anymore. He doesn't like the tests. He really hates the idea of getting more cases. So as long as he doesn't know, as long as everybody else is taking a test, he didn't have to take a test. Remember Kayleigh McEnany saying July 17th, or no, July 21st, I think it was, he takes tests multiple times a day. And then it was ABC News, Jonathan Carl with ABC News asked him, so what's the deal? Are you taking multiple tests a day? And Trump's like, I don't know about that. I wasn't, but I'm taking. And then he did his tell. He's got two tells. One where he adjusts his tie, and then the other tell where he kind of looks down to the right, and you know he's just making stuff up as he's doing it. I don't know about that. I get tested every couple of days, every 3 days. Like he's trying to come up with something that might sound good. I don't know about testing twice a day or more. I haven't heard about that. So yeah. So he was probably positive back on the Tuesday. He's probably the first one to get the virus, and it's been passing it to everybody else. He's a super spreader. Anyway, let me see. Who won? Besides the fly, take the fly out of the equation. You know what? The fly won. There's no Biden won tonight. Let's see how many people have already seen the Biden tweet. Okay, somebody sent it to me. Olex sent it to me. Let me go back to it here because it would have been a notification. Yeah, there it is. And there's another one. Yeah, so Olex is just sending me fly memes. I think that's what I'm going to do the rest of the night. And really, the networks, we don't have a spin room. They should just be sharing the fly memes on the Twitter. Pence lied a tons. Yes, he did. Okay, anybody else think there was a winner? Does anybody want to pick a winner? Go ahead. And if I catch it, I'll catch it. I'm just looking at my notifications here to see. Okay. Take your wings and fly. Okay. All right. Here's a good one. Brian Milkey. A fly walks into a debate and says, "Is this still taken?" See the levels in the joke? Very well done. Thank you, Olex, for sharing that. I'm going to retweet that one. Okay, guys, it's been a pleasure. It really hasn't, but it's been a pleasure talking to you. We hope you enjoyed, and we got the studio set up. You can't tell because it's just a green screen. Actually, that's the old green screen. The new green screen, which hangs down from the ceiling, is not set up yet because I can't find the batteries for my screwdriver. Anyway, but you guys, you won't be able to tell. Look, see how totally different this is than the old studio? Thanks to supporters like you. And thanks to the wonderful proprietors of this wonderful abode where they let me hang out. So we will see you guys tomorrow. I'm guessing. I'm probably going to broadcast then. What is it, Thursday? Yeah, we'll see you then. Everybody have a great night. Be safe. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Something about flies. Fill in your own punchline. See you guys.
Kevin, thanks for that.